In towns where peace should echo, something darker was waiting beneath the calm. In LaPorte, a husband was dismembered inside a closet. On Broad Ripple Avenue, bullets tore through a midnight crowd. A Cleveland officer bled out between parked cars. And in Castleton, an AirTag led a lover to murder. Each scene ended the same way, with decades of life traded for years behind bars, and victims who will never return. And this is, Inside Ohio and Indiana's Most Dangerous Black Female Killers. Shocking crimes you've never heard of. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Thessalonica Allen. They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from within your own home. In LaPorte, Indiana, that saying turned literal. Thessalonica Allen, a 34-year-old mother from South Bend, lived what seemed like an ordinary life. Married to Randy Allen, a stepfather to her 4 children, their family appeared stable from the outside. But on a summer evening in July 2021, what began as a simple marital argument would unravel into one of Indiana's most disturbing domestic murder cases. The argument started over a social media post. Randy believed his wife was interested in another man, and tensions escalated quickly. When he said he was leaving, Thessalonica pulled out a handgun. One bullet tore through his arm, ricocheting into his ribcage, and lodged near his spinal cord. Randy collapsed, paralyzed, and bleeding on the floor. His last words were desperate pleas for help. Instead, his wife ordered their 2 teenage children not to call 911. Investigators later described the apartment as a chilling scene of deliberate concealment. Thessalonica dragged her husband's body into her daughter's closet, leaving it there overnight. Hours later, she woke her children and told them to help move the body to the car. They tried, but Randy's body was too heavy. The next morning, she bought an axe and cleaning supplies from a local store. What happened next horrified even seasoned detectives. She dismembered Randy's body, cutting off his legs so it could fit inside a plastic tote. Blood traces on the walls and floors confirmed the children were forced to help bag body parts and clean the scene. When detectives searched the home days later, they found handwritten notes hidden under a pillow. A to-do list that described violent ways to kill her husband, including hit him with a hammer and stab him. That discovery eliminated any remaining doubt about premeditation. Allen later claimed self-defense, saying Randy had choked and attacked her. But prosecutors told the court there were no bruises, no marks, and no evidence of abuse. Her words were her only weapon left, said Deputy Prosecutor Julianne Havens during trial. In July 2023, a LaPorte County jury convicted Thessalonica Allen of 8 counts, including murder, abuse of a corpse, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. In September, Judge Tom Alevizos sentenced her to 63 years in prison, stating she would be over 80 before eligible for parole. Randy Allen's family sat in court as the sentence was read. His sister whispered, "This was a senseless murder that didn't have to happen." His uncle called her the devil in disguise. 3 lessons emerged from this tragedy. Never ignore escalating control and threats within a relationship, never involve children in adult conflicts, and never underestimate how digital jealousy can turn fatal. Recognizing danger early can save lives, even your own. In the silence of her cell, Thessalonica Allen now lives with what she tried so hard to hide, the truth she buried herself. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. Ciarra Hinds. The crowd was loud, the music was pulsing, but within seconds, chaos turned Broad Ripple Avenue into a killing ground. Ciarra Hinds, a 24-year-old woman from Indianapolis, stood at the center of that chaos. Described by witnesses as a masculine-acting female, Hinds was arrested months later for one of the deadliest mass shootings Indianapolis had seen in years. What began as a late-night dispute in June 2023 would end with 3 young lives gone and a sentence of 113 years in state prison. It happened just after 2:30 a.m. on June 25. Hundreds of people filled the streets outside bars and restaurants when an argument broke out between 2 groups. Surveillance video later showed Hinds wearing a red and black baseball cap, standing near the crowd. Witnesses said she shouted, "I don't give a F. I'm about to shoot everywhere," moments before being struck in the back of the head. Instead of retreating, she ran a few steps and opened fire into the mass of people. Bullets struck 4 individuals: Tywayne Henning, 24, Kaylia Preer, 22, and Christopher Lee Wilson Jr., 19, all fatally wounded. A fourth victim, a 21-year-old woman, survived. Detectives called the aftermath a nightmare of evidence. Cell phone videos flooded social media within minutes, showing terrified people running for cover. Police collected shell casings and found the red and black hat at the scene, later matching DNA to Hinds. Over the following weeks, surveillance footage, social media traces, and witness tips guided detectives to an apartment on Indianapolis' North Side. On the 28th of September 2023, officers arrested her. Inside, they recovered a .40 caliber Glock 27, ballistically matched to the bullets that ended 3 young lives. In court, Hinds claimed self-defense. She said she fired after being attacked, telling detectives, "I felt like they were trying to kill me." Her sister echoed that statement, saying Hinds was protecting herself against men. But prosecutors argued the evidence proved otherwise, that she made a conscious decision to bring a loaded weapon into a crowded nightlife district and pull the trigger. Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears told jurors. The jury convicted her in August 2025 of 2 counts of murder, reckless homicide, and criminal recklessness. Judge Jennifer Harrison imposed a 113-year prison term, saying the sentence stands for each life lost and for the danger caused to hundreds of others. Families filled the courtroom during sentencing. Lynn Hill, mother of one victim, said, "This feels like a second funeral, but at least justice spoke today." Another parent shouted across the aisle, calling Hinds cold-blooded before deputies escorted him out. From this tragedy, 3 lessons emerge. Never carry weapons into volatile environments. Never underestimate how quickly ego and alcohol can turn deadly, and always walk away before emotion becomes irreversible violence. Prevention begins where confrontation ends. Today, Ciarra Hinds remains behind bars, a reminder that one split-second choice in anger can destroy every life in its path. Number 3. Tamara McLoyd. Some crimes are born of desperation. Others come from darkness too deep to understand. Tamara McLoyd's story was both. On New Year's Eve 2021, Cleveland police officer Shane Bartek was walking to his car after work, ready to meet friends for a Cavaliers game. He never made it. In the parking lot of his apartment complex, an 18-year-old woman, armed, reckless, and already on probation, approached him from behind. That woman was Tamara McLoyd, a teenager from Garfield Heights, whose short life had already spiraled into a pattern of robberies, arrests, and rage. At 6 p.m., security cameras recorded the fatal encounter. McLoyd demanded Bartek's keys at gunpoint. When the officer resisted, she fired twice. One bullet struck his torso, and he fell between 2 cars, bleeding out as she fled in his stolen Mazda. Within hours, while police began their manhunt, McLoyd was celebrating the new year. The investigation moved fast. Detectives from the Cleveland Division of Police and U.S. Marshals traced her through social media posts, surveillance footage, and DNA from the gun. Instagram videos showed her flashing weapons, bragging about making history. One officer later said, "She acted as if she was proud of it." On the 1st of January 2022, police found her sitting in a parked car at a gas station. During questioning, she admitted firing the gun but claimed it wasn't intentional. She said she didn't know Bartek was an officer. Investigators later connected her to a Christmas Day carjacking and a string of aggravated robberies across Ohio. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley called her a terrorist on our streets, pointing out that she was still under juvenile probation that no one had enforced. In August 2022, a Cuyahoga County jury found McLoyd guilty of aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, and weapons violations. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Officer Bartek's twin sister, Summer, later said, "When she shot Shane, she shot me too." During sentencing, Judge John O'Donnell told McLoyd, "You took a man who represented the best of us." She received life in prison with the possibility of parole, though the judge acknowledged she would be elderly before ever seeing freedom. Prosecutors sought life without parole, but Bartek's family, devout Christians, opposed the death penalty. His mother, Deborah, said through tears, "I couldn't wipe the blood from his face." No parent should have to live that moment. As the courtroom emptied, McLoyd remained expressionless, her hands cuffed, eyes distant. She had once said in jail, "I'm famous now." Those words haunted the city. From this tragedy, three truths emerge: unchecked youth crime can escalate to irreversible violence, social media can embolden rather than reform, and leniency without accountability can destroy lives. Recognizing danger early, especially among vulnerable teens, remains society's best defense against the next senseless loss. Today, behind the bars of an Ohio state prison, Tamara McLoyd lives with the silence she once tried to fill with noise, and a life forever defined by one trigger pull. Number 4. Arieal Smith and Ebonie Parks. It began as a night of music and celebration, and ended in a parking lot with one young woman bleeding to death. In the early hours of the 25th of February 2022, 25-year-old Sequoia Williams stood outside Club Couto in Indianapolis, unaware that jealousy was about to end her life. Inside the club earlier that night, she had been supporting a childhood friend, the same man who happened to be the ex-boyfriend of another woman in the crowd, 29-year-old Ebonie Parks. Parks had arrived with her younger sister, 25-year-old Arieal Smith. By the end of the night, one would be in prison, the other under house arrest, and a community left shaken. Witnesses said tension sparked inside the club. Smith confronted Sequoia and threw a drink in her face. It was chaotic, one security guard later recalled. You could tell that jealousy was behind it. The guard intervened, escorting Smith out before things escalated further. Smith walked to a black SUV parked outside. Ebonie was waiting behind the wheel. Moments later, Williams exited the club, walking toward the same vehicle. In the parking lot, Williams approached the passenger window and began knocking. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Witnesses testified that Williams raised her hands, shouting that Smith had a gun. Then, a single shot rang out. The bullet tore into Williams' torso. As she collapsed to the pavement, Smith aimed the gun toward another bystander before her sister hit the gas. They sped off into the night, firing more rounds into the air. Williams was rushed to a nearby hospital but died shortly after arrival. Investigators from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department quickly pieced the night together through witness statements, security footage, and license plate data. Within a week, both sisters were in custody. During interrogation, Smith claimed the shooting was accidental, a warning shot, she said. She admitted giving the gun to someone else afterward but refused to identify who. Parks insisted she hadn't seen the gun fired, only heard the shot. But evidence told a different story. In September 2023, both women stood trial. Jurors watched surveillance video showing the altercation and heard testimony from multiple witnesses. The verdict was clear: Arieal Smith was guilty of murder, while Ebonie Parks was guilty of assisting a criminal. In November, Judge Jeffrey L. Marshall sentenced Smith to 48 years in prison. Her sister received 2 years of home detention. During sentencing, prosecutor Ryan Mears said, "One life is gone, 2 others destroyed, all because of jealousy and pride." Williams' mother, Marilyn Johnson, stood in court holding her daughter's photo. She cared for others, even in her last breath, she said. From tragedy comes reflection. Jealousy, ego, and escalation are a deadly mix. Walk away before anger becomes irreversible. Stay vigilant in volatile settings. And never let pride pull the trigger that silence can prevent. In the end, 2 sisters drove away, but only one will ever return home again. Number 5. Akira Fletcher. It started as a late-night argument, but ended with a gunshot that would divide an entire community over one question: was it murder or self-defense? In the early morning of the 12th of July 2024, a confrontation between 23-year-old Akira Fletcher and 29-year-old Niema Norton in Cincinnati's Avondale neighborhood spiraled into deadly violence. The 2 women had a long, bitter feud that had already turned physical months earlier. Court records revealed Norton once pointed a gun at Fletcher and threatened to shoot her. That night, the tension exploded into a fatal encounter that was streamed, posted, and dissected across social media. The incident began around 2:30 a.m. in a parking lot along Reading Road. Fletcher was sitting inside her car, recording on her phone, while Norton and another woman approached from outside. The situation turned chaotic, fists slammed against the windows, rocks were thrown, and both the rear and driver's side glass shattered. Fletcher, who said her tires had been slashed, called 911 twice as the attack continued. In her video, she could be heard yelling, "You should be happy you don't get clapped," a slang warning implying gunfire. Moments later, the situation reached its breaking point. As Norton and the other woman closed in again, Fletcher allegedly drew a handgun from her purse and fired 4 rounds through the broken driver's window. Both women fell to the ground, one wounded, one fatally. Norton was rushed to the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, where she remained on life support for weeks before dying on August 26. The footage, later posted to Facebook by Fletcher herself, went viral. In the posts, she claimed self-defense, insisting she feared for her life after being punched and trapped in her car. "They busted my windows, tried to drag me out, I had no choice," she wrote. A day after the upload, police arrested her at her Cincinnati apartment. The case became one of Ohio's most debated examples of the stand your ground law. Legal analyst Jay Clark told reporters, if the videos show her being attacked, that could make this a textbook self-defense scenario. But Hamilton County prosecutors disagreed. They indicted Fletcher for aggravated murder, and 2 counts of felonious assault, arguing she escalated the situation by firing from within her vehicle instead of retreating. Fletcher is currently being held without bond as the case moves toward trial. The court will determine whether her act was justifiable or criminal, a decision that could set precedent in Ohio's self-defense law. Beyond the courtroom, this case serves as a warning. Conflicts fueled by pride can turn lethal in seconds. Social media should never become the stage for real-life violence. And when fear meets firearms, every trigger pull becomes a life or death judgment. Recognizing when to walk away is sometimes the greatest act of strength. As of now, Akira Fletcher sits behind bars, a symbol of how quickly digital feuds can turn into deadly realities. Number 6. Gaylyn Morris. Jealousy doesn't just destroy relationships, it can turn technology into a weapon. And one Apple AirTag would lead to a killing that stunned Indiana. On the night of the 3rd of June 2022, 26-year-old Gaylyn Morris drove through the streets of Indianapolis searching for her boyfriend, 26-year-old Andre Smith. Suspicious that he was cheating, she hid an Apple AirTag in his car, a small piece of technology designed to find lost items, not track people. That night, it led her straight to him. According to prosecutors, Morris tracked the signal to Tilly's Pub and Grill in Castleton, where Smith was having drinks with another woman. Witnesses said Morris stormed inside, furious, and threw a drink at the woman before trying to fight her. Moments later, she climbed into her blue Chevrolet Impala, seething with rage. Outside, Smith stood on the sidewalk arguing with her. Witnesses described what happened next as like watching anger take physical form. Morris revved her engine, accelerated toward him, and struck him with the car. But it didn't stop there. She reversed, then drove forward again, twice, dragging his body underneath. One bystander told police he heard a crunching sound, like she ran over a speed bump. When officers from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department arrived, Smith's body was pinned beneath the car. Morris was still on the scene. "I just lost it," she reportedly told police. She was arrested at 12:32 a.m. Detectives soon pieced together the evidence, surveillance video from the bar, testimony from patrons, and the AirTag itself, which confirmed that she had followed Smith's movements. The Marion County prosecutor charged her with murder. But her defense argued she acted in what Indiana law calls sudden heat, an uncontrollable emotional reaction that can reduce a murder charge to voluntary manslaughter. During the trial, prosecutors said, this was not sudden heat. This was revenge. They described how Morris had confronted Smith earlier that day and planned to find him again. But after only 4 hours of deliberation, jurors sided with the defense. They convicted her of voluntary manslaughter, a lesser charge. In September 2023, Judge Marshall Dawkins Broadwell sentenced Morris to 18 years in prison, citing her moment of rage and acknowledging her apology to the victim's family. But that apology brought little comfort. In court, Andre Smith's mother, LaPrecia Sanders, called Morris a murderer, saying, "My son didn't deserve to die because he wanted to move on." The case drew national attention, earning Morris the name Apple AirTag Killer. It also fueled growing concerns about tracking devices being used for stalking, leading to lawsuits against Apple over safety failures. From this tragedy, lessons emerge. Technology in jealous hands can become deadly, emotional control is stronger than vengeance, and love twisted by obsession leaves only loss. Understanding the line between passion and violence could save lives. In the end, Gaylyn Morris's crime was driven by more than jealousy. It was proof that in the age of technology, even heartbreak can be weaponized. Number 7. Ciarra Landfair, Lakeysha Couto and Gracie Smith. It began as a night of laughter and drinks, and ended with a young woman's body dumped in a Kentucky field. In late May 2019, 23-year-old Kimra Miller, a medical assistant from Indianapolis who had recently moved to Evansville, shared a small home on South Garvin Street with two women, Ciarra Landfair and Gracie Smith. That home would become the center of one of Indiana's most disturbing homicide cases, one fueled by alcohol, anger, and betrayal. On the night of May 25, Landfair's sister, 27-year-old Lakeysha Couto, came over. The four women spent the night drinking, talking, and arguing. Witnesses would later describe the home as tense and chaotic, with shouting echoing between the kitchen and living room. At some point, an argument broke out between the sisters, and Miller retreated to her bedroom to avoid the fight. Hours later, she would be dead. According to court documents, Landfair told police she heard a commotion from Miller's room. When she looked in, she saw Couto on top of Miller, who was face down in a recliner that had flipped over. Moments later, Couto allegedly returned to the kitchen and said, "Her problems are gone." Landfair claimed she didn't believe her until she saw Miller's lifeless body. What followed was a grim attempt to cover up the crime. Landfair admitted to driving Miller's body out of the city with Couto and Gracie Smith as passengers. They crossed into Kentucky, stopping near Ellis Park by the Ohio River. There, Landfair dragged the body into tall grass and left it. A week later, on June 2, a farmer in Henderson County discovered Miller's remains. The heat had begun to decompose the body, but investigators traced evidence back to Evansville. Detectives from the Evansville Police Department quickly connected the dots: phone records, witness statements, and inconsistencies in the sisters' stories. On the 7th of June 2019, all three women were arrested. During interrogation, each blamed the other. Landfair said Couto killed Miller. Couto insisted Landfair was the aggressor. But forensic evidence inside the South Garvin Street home confirmed that Miller's death occurred there. After months of legal battles, plea deals followed. In December 2019, Ciarra Landfair pleaded guilty to murder and received 45 years in prison. Her sister, Couto, pleaded guilty to assisting a criminal and was sentenced to probation. Gracie Smith received the same, having helped transport and conceal the body. In court, the quiet was broken only by the words of the prosecutor: a young woman was killed by those she trusted most. From this tragedy, several lessons endure. Alcohol and violence are a deadly mix. Silence after a crime makes you part of it. And when loyalty replaces morality, justice always catches up. Recognizing danger early, even among friends, can save a life. Today, Ciarra Landfair sits behind bars, while her accomplices walk free. A friendship turned fatal remains a chilling reminder: evil doesn't always come from strangers, sometimes it's sitting right beside you. Number 8. Allexis Telia Ferrell. It began as a disturbing rumor, and ended as one of the most shocking animal cruelty cases Ohio had ever seen. In August 2024, 27-year-old Allexis Telia Ferrell of Canton, Ohio, became the center of national outrage after committing an act that defied comprehension. A graduate of Canton McKinley High School, Ferrell was known locally for past run-ins with the law, minor theft, probation violations, and a child endangerment charge. But nothing in her record hinted at what would happen next. On the night of the 16th of August 2024, residents in the 1100 block of 13th Street SE called police to report a horrific scene. Witnesses said Ferrell was seen outside in a residential area, yelling incoherently as she stomped on a cat's head before picking up the lifeless body and eating it. When officers arrived, they found her standing barefoot, blood on her feet and animal fur stuck to her lips. The responding officer described the moment in his report: she appeared detached from reality, no remorse, no emotion. Ferrell was taken into custody just before 11 p.m. The crime shocked even seasoned investigators from the Stark County Sheriff's Office. During her October court appearance, defense attorney Stephen Candell revealed that Ferrell had struggled with mental illness and substance abuse, issues that had gone untreated for years. She needs help, not hate, he told the court, urging for evaluation before sentencing. Judge Frank Forcione ordered a competency hearing but made his disgust clear. "I can't express the disappointment, the shock, the disgust this crime has brought to me," he said. In December 2024, Ferrell pleaded guilty to felony cruelty to companion animals. She was sentenced to 1 year in prison, plus 18 additional months for violating probation from earlier cases. The judge described her as a danger to the community and said her actions had embarrassed this nation. But the case did not stay confined to Canton. Within days of her arrest, images and reports of the incident went viral. Online conspiracy groups falsely tied Ferrell's actions to Haitian immigrants in Ohio, despite her being a U.S.-born citizen. The claim spread rapidly, eventually reaching national politics. During a televised presidential debate, former President Donald Trump repeated the fabricated story that immigrants were eating cats. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, echoed the statement days later, further fueling outrage and misinformation. The truth was simple: one woman's mental collapse had been weaponized into political propaganda. From this deeply unsettling case, 3 hard lessons stand out. Untreated mental illness can spiral into tragedy if ignored. Social media misinformation can inflame fear faster than facts can correct it. And unchecked anger, whether online or off, always leaves destruction behind. Recognizing truth, compassion, and accountability remains the only defense. Today, Allexis Ferrell sits in an Ohio prison, her name tied not only to a crime of cruelty but to a moment when reality and rumor collided, with consequences that echoed far beyond her small city. Number 9. Briana Benson. A teenage argument that began on social media would end in tragedy, one that cost an 18-year-old her life and another young woman her freedom. On the night of the 26th of March 2017, 20-year-old Briana Benson of Cincinnati drove downtown after her younger sister called, saying she'd been involved in a fight. What began as a petty feud between girls over text and Instagram would soon turn into one of Ohio's most shocking vehicular homicides, a murder captured on video. The tension had been building for weeks between Benson's younger sister, Maya, and one of 18-year-old Matey Hart's close friends. That night, the groups decided to confront each other in person on Walnut Street. Dozens watched as the verbal fight spiraled into a brawl. Witnesses testified that Benson jumped in, dragging Hart by her hair, kicking her, and stomping on her face. When it was over, Hart's keys somehow ended up inside Benson's car. Moments later, Benson drove away, but not for long. Surveillance footage and an Uber dashcam captured what happened next. Hart ran up to the passenger side of Benson's vehicle, pounding on the window and demanding her keys back. Prosecutors said Benson then backed up, shifted gears, and accelerated toward her. The front tires turned sharply right before striking Hart, dragging her nearly 90 feet down the street. Cincinnati Police Sergeant Eric Franz described the scene as brutal, noting that Hart's body came to rest far from the point of impact. The coroner confirmed she had suffered multiple blunt force injuries, including broken ribs and severe trauma to her head and lungs. She died 4 days later. Benson fled the scene but was arrested soon after. Toxicology tests revealed traces of cocaine in her system, though the defense argued it was irrelevant and that she had simply panicked after the fight. At trial, her attorney insisted the collision was a terrible accident, while prosecutors said it was murder driven by anger. She had 5 choices that night, the state's crash expert testified, and she turned her wheel toward Matey. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding Briana Benson guilty of murder, aggravated vehicular homicide, and failing to stop after a crash. In March 2018, Judge Robert Winkler sentenced her to 18 years to life in prison. "You are the poster child," he said, "for why we don't let defendants out on bond while awaiting trial for a felony." Over the years, Benson tried to appeal her conviction, claiming ineffective counsel. But in 2023, a Hamilton County judge rejected her final request for a new trial, ruling the evidence against her overwhelming. From this senseless loss, 3 hard lessons remain. Online feuds can have deadly consequences, a single reckless choice can destroy multiple lives, and violence, once set in motion, can't be taken back. In the end, Briana Benson's case reminds us that anger unleashed behind the wheel doesn't just end an argument, it ends a life. Number 10. Bionca Ellis. It was a bright Monday afternoon in North Olmsted, Ohio, the kind of calm that makes violence feel impossible. Then, without warning, it shattered in front of a grocery store. On the 3rd of June 2024, 32-year-old Bionca S. Ellis walked into a Volunteers of America thrift store. Surveillance video would later show her slipping 2 large kitchen knives into her bag before calmly exiting. Moments later, she crossed the parking lot into a nearby Giant Eagle grocery store, where 38-year-old Margot would shop with her 3-year-old son, Julian. Neither woman nor child had ever seen Ellis before. Their lives would cross for less than 5 minutes, and end in horror. As Margot loaded groceries into her car, Julian sat in the shopping cart. Witnesses said Ellis followed them from inside the store, gripping one of the stolen knives. Without a word, she lunged forward and began stabbing. Margot screamed for help as her son was struck in the face and back. Bystanders froze. Within seconds, the attacker turned and fled, leaving behind a parking lot soaked in panic. Julian was rushed to St. John Medical Center, but the wounds were too severe. He was pronounced dead soon after. His mother survived but suffered deep lacerations to her shoulder and back. Police arrested Ellis minutes later on Dover Center Road, still holding the bloodied knife. This was a random act of violence, North Olmsted Police Chief Bob Wagner told reporters. There was no connection. No warning, no reason. The investigation revealed disturbing details. Days before the murder, Ellis had been released from custody despite a magistrate's warning that she needed psychiatric evaluation. Her own mother later said Ellis had struggled with severe mental illness for years, often claiming to hear voices. In one earlier encounter, Ellis reportedly told officers she had killed people in California and probably ate him. By September 2024, a judge ruled her incompetent to stand trial. But after months of treatment, doctors declared her competent in February 2025. Ellis entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. Prosecutors charged her with 10 felonies, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, and felonious assault. She remains in the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $5 million bond as she awaits trial, set for October 2025. For the Wood family, time has not softened the wound. We will never recover, they said in a statement. We just want justice for Julian. The community built a mural near the Giant Eagle, a green dinosaur, his favorite, now covered in flowers and children's drawings. From this tragedy come painful lessons. Untreated mental illness can be as dangerous as any weapon. Systems that fail to act on warning signs put innocent lives at risk. And even a routine day in public spaces demands awareness. Safety begins with vigilance and compassion before tragedy. In the end, one senseless act ended a child's life and exposed a system too slow to stop it, a tragedy Ohio will never forget. From jealousy-fueled murders to crimes born of rage, these women proved that horror isn't always found in the shadows. Sometimes, it lives next door. But these stories are more than true crime. They're warnings, reminders that danger can rise from the ordinary, and that silence often speaks the loudest before tragedy strikes. If you found this episode of Justice Reversed eye-opening, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe, tap that notification bell, and stay ahead of the next case before it hits the headlines. This is Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real consequences.